Good evening and welcome. Now I got a lot of questions regarding people who are interested in subscribing that what will we cover in the masterclass. Now as I told you, it's a masterclass, it's not a basic Greeks class that I will teach you what is delta, theta, gamma and stuff. So any masterclass or any course actually attempts to address a problem. So what is the problem? Problem is when people are doing intraday trading in straddles and strangles, they face frequent trading pitfalls like delta risk, mispricing due to volatility, and if your strikes are not chosen correctly. Obviously, along with that, there are behavioral biases like fear, greed, and overtrading, which will lead to inconsistent outcomes. That means you won't be very rational. The third one, which I feel where I come into the picture, is lack of quantitative tools and discipline. So many strategies like intraday straddle or strangle selling are reactive. That is, you react to what the market is doing. You lack systematic logic or quantitative edge in trade selection and management. Now, what are the risks? There's a directional risk and delta sensitivity to any option. So if there's a sudden breakout triggered by any RBI news event or institutional flow, then you are in a trap because you have sold a straddle or a strangle and the market is moving directionally. Number one. Number two, as you get closer to the expiry, the gamma risk of any option becomes exceptionally high. So that will amplify your straddle prices or your even strangle prices to some extent if they are close. If your strikes are not correct, then you will suffer stop loss continuously despite your view being correct. Okay, that will lead to premature exits and overtrading. So poor strike selection is obviously one of the major issues. So if you chase something like very close to the ATM, then your delta exposure, short delta exposure is massive. You are short both call and put, remember, in a strangle. So if you are very close to the ATM, then the delta exposure is high and any directional bias, a directional move will lead to a massive mark to market swing. But again, if you say that I will stand far aside, if you go too far OTM, then the premiums are so low that it will not justify the return given the risk, that is the margin you are putting up for that particular trade. Obviously, you can sell a 2 rupee call and a 2 rupee put, you will really get jacked on that, but that will not give you returns, right? So if your selection is not based on Greek's volatility curve or statistical edge, these mistakes will happen. So in the master class, we'll try to understand and address each of these issues and solve them from a quantitative and a Greek's perspective. That means it will not be theory, it will be totally something which will be shown to you how it works. Another one is people think that if I am selling options, theta is something which I am getting continuously. Well, you misjudge theta dynamics throughout the trading day, because if you overestimate early theta, that is difficult because theta decay is generally slow in the morning hours compared to normal trader expectations. And if you have seen the demo of the last 8 days, you've rarely seen me selling an option at 920. So that 920 option seller myth is somewhat a myth, because there you do not actually have an edge on a non-expiry day. Now what I have seen is basically the decay peaks post 12:30 normally. If there's a IV collapse earlier, the decay will peak earlier. And number three is the Vega expansion risk, that if IV expands in the early morning and if you have sold, that is where again you run a risk. This will be totally addressed, understood and resolved. Of course, volatility regime plays a major role. We already have the 𝐼𝑉𝑅Q. So basically, if you enter after a IV expansion, that is a problem. If you do not position yourself before a IV crash, that is a problem. All this happens because you lack a IV regime filter that is already addressed by the 𝐼𝑉𝑅Q in the straddle trading program. Now, institutional news, sudden news will cause your options to move. Even if there is no news, there is a lot of institutional position in option selling. Their adjustments also lead to sudden moves in options. You should be aware about that also. And if you do not hedge your position or reduce exposure, then sudden losses will occur. That's why we will look at iron flies. Psychological pressures are always there, because if you do not have a proper structure, you will exit on panic before actually the theta decay sets in. Maybe you are exiting at the highest point of the strangle. FOMO trading, that is, you have missed a trade, market is now decaying and you think, now it's going, now I sell, you will be late. Irrational strike shifting. If you do not have a very strong quantitative logic for shifting your strikes, your strike shifting is becoming subjective, which will not work. Majority do not have any quantitative tool or model for strike risk and risk. For example, people take a gap of 100, 150, 250 point and sell a strangle every day. No logic. People do not consider IV and Greeks into the picture because it's very difficult to follow them in real time, second by second. That is ATM gamma, IV slope, or what is the trend, context of the trend. Missing ROI filters, absence of sharp proxy or straddle efficiency leads to poor trades. Now all these terms will be explained in detail in the masterclass. This is not the masterclass, this is just the teaser or the trailer of the masterclass. Okay, so we will address all these issues in simple maths so that anyone can understand and use it in their trading. Lastly, poor adjustment strategy. If you adjust too late, your loss is already there. If you over adjust, your cost is there. So unless your conversion, there's also something called a conversion rule. That is, if you have sold a strangle, there's a certain point where you should not remain short on the strangle, but there's a chance of a theta decay. So you convert that into ironfly. Especially, let's say you have done a strangle till 325, you are getting money, you expect the theta decay to continue, IV crush to continue next day into the market, convert that into ironfly. Now one more point, this particular course is focused on day trading, straddles, strangles, etc. But I did get a response from a lot of earlier users and current users who are coming in, show something in positional. So we'll be doing ironfly on a positional weekly basis. That is, ironflies will be shown how to structure, where to shift, and how you can continue the trade throughout the week. I will not suggest a straddle or a strangle to be taken overnight. If you take it, it is your risk. It's not that you can't take it, you can definitely take it. But any overnight gap can ruin your whole 3-4 months work in a day. So personally, I don't believe in carrying a naked straddle or a strangle, but I am very comfortable carrying an ironfly because it is risk defined. Last is real-time edge monitoring, that if the market is moving and you are in a trade, you need to track the delta continuously. You need to see the IV state transitions. You need to see the decay efficiency gaps. Again, all these things in detail will be explained in the masterclass. So the solutions to this problem is adverse moves. You need event aware filters, which is there. Strike logic, it has to be Greek based. IV risk, there has to be range reduction tools. So in the Trading Selling Pro, the tools, strike selector will be using a quant model. IV regime filter is already there. Edge monitor, delta neutrality, theta efficiency, IV transition, everything would be shown. The conclusion, the whole trading logic, quant analysis has been modeled in PineScript, which is on TradingView. You can validate the performance across forward data by replaying the data. You should monitor and evolve your strategy. Now, I want to show you something interesting. Just watch this video, because this is basically the thing you will be seeing on recording. We are going into terminal on the masterclass. Now market started, and in the first 5 minutes we went down to somewhere around 950. So if you see this indicator, the ATM strike reference is 950. Let us start. I want you to notice these bars as they are moving. I also want you to notice this recommended strangle price and how the prices change out here. Remember, we are trading on 25th, and the last change on the strangle came on 24th July at around 12 noon. So let's start. Initially it is telling you 25,100 and 24,900. See, it changed. At 9:30 it went to 25,100, 2900. Now we have a look at the Nifty, and Nifty has come down to 850. So I will just now change this to 850. Keep a look at the strikes. The strangle which it has asked you to sell is 25,050 and 24,800. See this. See, 25,050, 750. This was the thing I suggested on Twitter. And as we are going ahead, this one. So as we are going ahead now, see the strikes changing in real time. The history is getting clogged. Same with the ironfly. So this adjustment is basically done in the backend through an engine which is taking into account all the Greeks, all the delta drift and everything. So this concept will be totally taught ground up in the masterclass. Masterclass is not just using this indicator. It's basically using that, what are the things which are on the background which are working, how are these figures being derived, and what are the factors we are looking at when we are choosing the strikes and we are changing strikes, when we are shifting strikes. It can be done for in the software will do it both for the strangle and for the ironfly. The strangle, if you are a real-time trader, intraday, you always square up and go home. But if you want to keep an overnight position, I will suggest an ironfly because that is risk defined. And this software will help you to keep that ironfly in play continuously. See, this changed at 255. Right, the day got over. So this was it. This is the indicator. Thank you for watching this. That was it. I hope everybody got a very good idea what the indicator will bring into play, and this will be distributed after the masterclass video drops. It's a part of Straddle Selling Pro. Whatever indicators you have got, this will be added, and I believe this is the first and the only tool in India which will help you track real-time strangle strikes, shift, do an ironfly, shift it. And in the masterclass, when you see the logic of shifting, how we select those shifts, it's purely quantitative, no subjectivity is involved, absolute logic and maths. Thank you. See you all in the masterclass. Bye.